It's the holiday season! What's up, YouTube? I am shooting this video in a haste, leaving for Thailand in about 12 hours with my girlfriend. We're going for 12 months. We're super pumped about it. It's gonna be fucking sweet. In other news, I have passed my PPL. I am America's newest private pilot, so I will private your pilot anytime. So happy to be done with that and to be done with the school that I'm going to put that into 2023 and move on to a new year in 2024. I will have a video coming up just about my check ride, everything that I went through, kind of the questions that they asked me, just to give anybody else any insight on, their check ride in the future. But this video coming up, I had a guy, a dude, reach out to me. His name is Justin. He goes to the University of Kansas, I believe. No, Kansas State University. He's going through their pilot program, and right now he's in his instrument training. Justin got the unicorn acceptance in VR&E. He was approved for flight training through VR&E. That is the unicorn exception, whatever, to get through VR&E. So I think this is very beneficial for any veterans who are interested in using VR&E or even just flight training. So in this video, Justin will talk about his journey in aviation. He was in the Army, where he started, where he's at now. We'll talk about using the GI Bill to pay for a private pilot license. Yes, using the GI Bill to pay for a private pilot license. Talk about the ins and outs of owning an airplane. Justin owns his own airplane, a Piper Cub. He's got some pretty cool videos, and I will link his channel in the description below. Go and check out some of those videos. We'll talk about struggles of leaving the military and how different veterans struggle with that, moving into a civilian life. And last but not least, we talk about how to get approved for flight training using VR&E. So this is going to be a good, helpful video for everybody. Check it out. Watch it to the end. If you get anything out of this, give me a like, subscribe. We'll be back in a month. Let's get it! Is he giving you a countdown too?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Shit's legit. All right. Sweet. Well, Justin, thanks for coming on. Thanks for reaching out to me on my channel. I think you have a lot to talk about, a lot that veterans need to know, a lot of things that I think will be very helpful for veterans to know. And also, you just got the unicorn and being approved for VR&E and flight training, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, thanks, man. I actually, if I hadn't seen your YouTube channel, I probably wouldn't have realized how much of a unicorn it was, because when I saw your channel go up and you're talking about it, I was like, oh, this dude's trying to do the same route I am. I wonder if I could connect with him and we could figure out how to get through this. Because everyone talks about how do you do it for free? And that's it is hard to figure it out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like I have learned that it's a unicorn thing from the comments that I've gotten in my videos of people saying oh, what about for flight training? Can we get approved for flight training?
Yeah.
I've seen a few comments about that, not just on my stuff. So I feel like I've gradually learned oh man, there's a lot of people trying to get approved for flight training, or at least everything paid for, in one way or another.
Well, not to dive too far ahead, but I'll kind of give the kicker right away, and then we'll go into the backstory of how I got there and how I got in aviation, all that stuff. But so most VR&E programs, here's the big thing you need to know, is you need to start off on the GI Bill. 100% start off on post 9/11, because most VR&E counselors will not approve you for VR&E in an aviation program because they consider private pilot recreational, which I disagree. When I went to my VR&E counselor the first time, because I got denied for aviation once, I brought up that sport pilot is considered recreational, which it is, but so isn't private pilot. And I made the argument that, well, I can't get commercial without private, but if I got sport pilot, I couldn't get commercial. So in that term, then that would make it so that federally, I was not getting private pilot for recreational purposes. And I tried to make that argument like that. And the guy was like, I don't know. I got to go look it up. And like 2 months later, thing came in the mail, denied. And I was like, oh, dude, I tried so hard. I thought I had it, because I read it. I just went in the regulations like, oh, sport pilot. Huh. That makes sense. Oh, private pilot. Huh. Different limitations. That makes sense. I was like, aha.
And he still shut you down anyway.
Yeah, he still shut me down.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to how I overcame this eventually. That's why I said you need to go post 9/11 GI Bill for a 141 school. Get your private pilot. As soon as you take your check ride and you pass, then you switch over to VR&E, staying on post 9/11 GI Bill until you get into VR&E.
Okay.
So you don't let yourself lapse. You continue to work, and then in the process you can switch during.
Yeah.
So
Kinda
all right, let's get into
going in the back door before they even know you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're like, I already have my private, good to go, bro.
Yeah.
I want to make this a career, and they're like, oh, career, yay!
We love veterans and careers.
You get a career, he gets a career, everybody gets a career.
All right. So was you were in the Army, correct?
Yeah, I was in the best branch in the military of the Army. Speaking of Go Army Beat Navy, I think we have the Army Navy game coming up. It's like on the 9th.
It's this week.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Or next week?
Next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Go Army Beat Navy.
Battling a bunch of crayon eaters, huh?
Yeah. Hey, we all make mistakes. When you're hungry, you're hungry.
Yeah.
But no, I spent 10 years in the Army. I was an infantryman, 11 Bravo. Did 3 deployments overall, 2 to Afghanistan, 1 to Kuwait and Iraq with my unit. And I ended up staying back during the Kuwait-Iraq deployment and just stayed in Kuwait, but the rest of the sections went up to Iraq. So credit for the unit, but unfortunately I got to hang out in the sandbox and do nothing but sweat to death. So if you ever get a chance to go to Kuwait, it's miserable.
Sounds like Arizona.
No, dude, 143 degrees in the Kuwaiti desert sucks.
Yeah, I've been to Kuwait, but it wasn't in the summer, thank God.
It was like 90 degrees in Kuwait during the winter, and you're like, oh, this is great.
You're like, this is nice.
Yeah, everyone else was in winter coats and wearing full snowsuits.
Yeah, the full timers that are there.
Yeah, because I mean, you think about it, it's 143 and it's 90. You just drop 50 degrees.
Oh yeah.
It's the desert. It gets cold.
Oh yeah, we have the same thing. In Arizona, the highest we get's 120 in Phoenix, but even now it's probably 70 degrees now, and I'm like, I might put a jacket on. Which 70 degrees, you're thinking, dude, that's probably perfect for Kansas weather, but here that's 50-degree difference to that.
Yep. Well, hey, don't forget that you can still get ice buildup in the carburetor up to 70 degrees. So
yeah.
See.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway, so I spent 10 years in the Army. I was an infantryman, 2 combat deployments. Went there in 2009 went to Wardak, and then in 2011 went to the Arghandab. 2 very different deployments. I'd had some aviation experience before as a kid. In 1999, I took my first airplane ride in a T-6 Texan, which is like the World War II training airplane. So you'd go from like a Piper Cub or a Stearman or some combination of that level. And then you go to the advanced trainer side, which is the AT-6 Texan. The Navy called it the SNJ. I don't remember if it's the 4 or 5, but they called it an SNJ. Other countries called it like the Harvard and other stuff. But it was known as like the pilot maker. So it was a pretty difficult airplane to learn on. And I took my first ride in that in 1999. I got it in my logbook. I was 10. And my grandfather bought a logbook at the air show that I was at, had the CFI, the guy flying the T-6, put in there Warbird T-6 introduction. The next year I went back and I got a half hour and a Waco biplane. Same thing, logbook, open cockpit biplane introduction. Both signed off, got an hour tailwheel time. And all I did was sit in the front and the back of these airplanes and just look out the window, dude. So,
Dang. So is that still the logbook that you're using now?
Yeah, I still use the same logbook. It's got it's got the 1900s date in there. So I have to cross out the 1900 and put 2000s in there. But I refuse to get rid of that logbook. Once it's full, then I'll go to more updated logbook.
Yeah.
But
you got to continue in that. You can't
Yeah,
forget
exactly.
your roots, you know?
That's the whole point. And I felt like if I didn't start off that way, I would get no tailwheel time. So I just set it in my mind that I have this logbook for tailwheel time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I've
I like
ignored
that.
as much of the nose wheel community as I could and stuck with tailwheel.
I like that.
But oh
Nice.
yeah, so I got out
And
of the Army in 2018, I think. Took some time off. Ended up working for a company called Plain Sense. They're a fractional based ownership aviation company. They're a 135K. They're a part 135 and 91K operation. You basically buy a fraction of the aircraft, and you get a certain amount of flight hours per year, and you can use the airplane. You need an 8-hour notice, and to reposition an aircraft, and you basically fly privately without having to buy the airplane, and you don't provide your own pilot. So you just show up there like you got a private jet, walk onto the airplane, and off you go. And that's what most celebrities use, is a fractional based ownership company. And I worked in the operations center, realized flying airplanes is pretty cool, and got to know a couple of vets locally that were former F-18 guys, and they took me flying, and I was like, dude, this is really cool. How do I do this? How do I do this for free? And for like 2 years, every day, just about every day, I would search online and try to figure out how to do it. I applied for scholarships and grants, and nothing was coming back. Zip zeros, nothing. And then I figured out 141 schools. So it was like education, college, and I should start figuring this out. And I called every place under the sun. Hey, do you cover private pilot? And they're like, nope, you got to have that first. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. So keep looking. And then finally, I found K-State, and K-State covered private pilot. And I was like, are you sure? I called them like 3 or 4 times in a row. I was like, are you sure you cover private pilot? And they're like, yes. And I was like, no, really? Like, I'm about to move from New Hampshire to Kansas again. And are you sure you cover it? And they're like, yes.
Are you
like,
fucking sure?
Yeah, I was like, bro, they're like, no way. I don't believe you. And
I'm
then
going to
finally
show up at your doorstep.
Yeah, I was like, I actually said something similar to my academic advisors. Like, if I move all the way out there from New Hampshire, and you tell me it's not, I'm going to lose my mind and burn your school down. And she was like, I promise you it's covered. And I was like, okay. And I showed up there, and boom, sure enough, I'm in a ground school and in a flight lab. And I was like, whoa, holy moly, it's covered. I ended up having to come out of pocket like $1,500 because I went over the minimum amount allowed under the GI Bill. But that's, I could sell feet pics to your mom, and we could make $1,500 easily.
Yeah,
which exactly. I'm sure your mother's a nice woman and she doesn't want my feet pics, but you get what I'm saying,
Yeah. Well, if there's some nice feet, maybe. Who knows?
Hey, if it pays for flight time, fuck it.
Yeah. So the $1,500 was just because you went over the minimum flight or the maximum flight hours that the GI Bill was going to pay for, essentially.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And don't quote me on the specifics on it, but I think what happens is the school takes the average amount of time it takes I don't know if it's veterans or their students as a whole take to pass private pilot. And then the VA gives a minimum amount or maximum minimum amount, and then they find the difference between the two, and they basically come up with a number saying like, hey, if the student goes over this amount, they have to cover it out of their pocket. And I think it was like, for me, it was like, I think it was like $12,500. So I basically ended up going over by $1,500.
That's not bad.
No.
Yeah. No. And then, so can you talk a little bit about how, because there's kind of a misnomer that you can't use your GI Bill for your private pilot license.
Yeah. So that is true and also not true. Main thing we'll focus on to start out with the gate is that it's not true. And I want that to be the first thing, is because it's a hurdle that every veteran deals with, right? So they're like, they hear, no, you can't use it. Well, not true. You can use it as long as that rating is covered as a class within a Part 141 flight school in a college degree program, right? So like you said, you live in Arizona, right? And let's say you went to the University of Arizona and they have private pilot there, which I assume they don't, but let's just say they do, because I'm pretty sure they don't have a flight school. But they're a Part 141 flight school, which is determined by the FAA and also through the state approving agency. So they have to go through 2 approving processes. And a Part 141 school has reduced minimums for flight times because they are also part of uh, um, a flight like structured program. That you're not just, hey, I got my airplane rating and I'm good to go. You're learning, physics. You're learning, everything related to flight. You're basically becoming
opposed to like a 61.
opposed to 61, which I've noticed personally that. Part 61 is just you go to your local flight school just downtown. You go find an instructor there, and he teaches you how to fly. That's it. He has nothing to do with your ground school. He has nothing to do with your written exam, other than he signs off in your logbook and gives you an endorsement to go take your written exam. That's it. Most Part 61 flight instructors will not give you a ground school or anything like that. So to recap, two different routes, Part 61, Part 141. GI Bill will be covered in a Part 141 for private pilots, so long as it is part of a college degree program and they have the class. So if they have a flight club, that is not the same. They have to have a structured, approved Part 141 ground school and flight lab. Flight lab is the important part. Then you can go ahead and use your GI Bill.
So at Kansas State is the flight program, where you go to do your training, is it actually a part of the school?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
They maintain their own fleets. They've got Cessna 172s, S models, with G1000s. We have a Bonanza, an A33. We've got some Barons. I don't know much about the Barons because that's what we do multi-engine in. And we also have some Cirruses, SR20s or 22s. I don't remember which. But and we also have a flight school in Kansas City. So for your purposes, because you off camera, we had mentioned you were moving somewhere else. And you could go to the Kansas City Flight School, which would be half the distance to where you guys wanted to go. And you could go online for everything else, but then attend the flight school there.
Keep that in mind.
So that's called the Olathe campus.
Arizona State, you're talking about schools in Arizona Arizona State just started a program for that, but it's not a part of the school. Like the actual flight training, they contracted out to the school AeroGuard that I go to. So I had thought about doing that until I realized it's like, oh, it's a part of this, shitty flight school that I'm already going to. Not going to do that.
Well, is it covered by your private pilot? Or is it covered by your GI Bill? Sorry.
At ASU, yeah, it would be.
Well, are you paying out of pocket for it now?
Oh, am I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, that whole private, that was before I went there to get, like, they just started that program there right now.
Okay, so your current school,
like within
paying out of pocket?
Yeah, I'm paying out of pocket for mine.
Oh, buddy, what are you doing?
Yep, some stuff happened, and that's just how things went down.
You got to switch it over. You got to go find. You just got to knock out a rating. That's it. Knock out one rating, or you got to go buy your own airplane, which we'll talk about that and how to really offset some of the costs. And getting into GA, general aviation, will really help you further your career big time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, listen, you just find out things gradually along the way, and then you look back at all the dumb shit that you did, and then you wish you could change it.
Yeah,
this is one of them. But
that's why
now I'm like I'm right at the check ride, and I'm taking my check ride on Sunday. It's just like at this point, I just got to finish it.
Don't forget that you can get your check ride reimbursed via the VA. I'll get you the digits on it because I don't know if you're doing it out of pocket, if it applies to you, but if you're doing a check ride as part of the school program, you get everything reimbursed. Hotels, fuel, oil, the maintenance, the cost of the airplane, essentially, the DPE, and the check ride itself. And if you have to fly from one place to another and then take it someplace else, you'll get that covered. You get the hotel covered. You get your food covered. Up to $2,200 is like the maximum amount that you'll get covered. But there's like a 5 or 6 step process of how to do everything, and I've got it all written down. I'll give it to you. So,
yeah, I wish I would have done that. There just weren't any other. I think there's one other program in Arizona, Embry-Riddle. I think they're a 141 school, and I think they take the GI. I think they take the GI Bill.
They're very engineering centric, from what I understand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
I've heard it's
see. For me personally, I don't give a shit about the degree program. I really don't. Because once I get my commercial pilot's license, my multi-engine, I don't know if I'm going to do CFI because I've got a route that I don't need to do that, but I want to get it for my son to teach him how to fly on his own to really cut the costs long term, especially when I was in high school. Imagine if you were in high school and you got your private pilot's license and then you get your instrument rating. And then when you're 18, you get your commercial pilot's license and you're off to the races. And by the time you're 18 and a half, almost 19, you're CFI, you know?
hmm Yeah, I think even if you left high school, like you said, with your private pilot license, and then,
Yeah.
maybe you just decide to stick at that for the rest of your life and you want to do something else. Either way, that's like such a big start. I think that's in some ways the biggest hurdle to get over is getting from that ground zero where you're like, I'm not a fucking pilot. Like, never flown a plane in my life to the point where you can fly by yourself, you're making calls by yourself, landing by yourself, doing all that stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
think getting from that ground zero where you have to convince your mind, kind of like imposter syndrome. Like
Yeah.
you feel like you're an imposter, but then after that, I think it's kind of a little bit more mentally like, oh, I got this. I'm this guy.
Looking at it now, because I'm about halfway through my instrument stuff, I would say that private pilot, looking back on it, is way easier than what people. There's so much anxiety about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to instrument, like you just barely learn how to fly. You're at 60 hours or so. If you just go from private right into instrument, and when you get an instrument, you've barely learned a new skill, and now you're learning how to do that new skill differently. Because instrument, I think, is the hardest rating to get, and it is you're pushing, in my opinion, you're really pushing the skills capability of a young pilot. Whether they're, and I mean young, not as an age, like we're older, but I mean like pushing their skill based on their amount of flight hours. Because you're
Yeah.
potentially giving them the okay to fly into bad weather, and you can train to fly in bad weather all you want, but just stuff happens in bad weather that you can't predict. And so like actually last night I went to go fly, and during your run up you're supposed to check idle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to go check idle last night and I pulled that thing all the way out and the airplane quit. And it's the idle adjustment screw inside the throttle that basically sets it. And when you go from like summer flying to winter flying, that kind of has to get adjusted on some aircraft. Ours just happened to be that aircraft. And technically that downs the aircraft, it deadlines it. And so prior to that, when I was doing the pre-flight, I noticed some frost up on the wings. And so we have a de-icer at the school, and excuse me, and I just grabbed the de-icer with a CFI. We had someone, ground crew, basically de-ice the top of the airplane. And I was like, hey, look, I know there's a freezing level up there where we have ice on here, so let's put a de-icer on. But if this was my own personal airplane, I probably wouldn't fly. I would just be like, all right, hey, I've got essentially a VFR aircraft, which is a Cessna 172. I don't have ice boots. You really can't do much after that, And so I'm like, look, if you're the CFI, you've flown a lot here. This is like a second or third winter season here. And I'm like, hey, if you don't want to go flying, I'm okay with that. Like, this is we have ice on the wings. Let's not be dumb about this. And he's like, no, we're good as long as we put the de-ice on. I'm like, okay. So we taxi over, we do the run up, I pull idle and it shuts off. And I'm like, all right, well, taxi back. And I get back in, we tell them what happened. They're like, all right, we'll fill out the discrepancy sheet. And they're like, do you want a different airplane? And I was like, no, I don't. I don't want to. We've already had 2 issues, 2 strikes, 2 things that have concerned me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, yeah, I'll just get a new airplane and go up. No big deal. Next thing you know, I'm up there and I'm in inadvertent IMC, with visible, moisture. And next thing you know, I've got ice in my wings. So last night I basically just did like a 45-minute ground school, a ground lesson, and went over approaches and holds and stuff like that. So when you go from barely having any VFR time to instrument, it is a very different world. And I think what should happen is you should have private, then commercial, and then you like a restricted commercial to allow guys to get some experience flying at lower levels at the commercial level. And then when they want to go more professionally, when they have some more time under their belt, then they should go to instrument. And then from there, CFI. That's the way I think things should be done.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you're crawling, and then from there
Like
you're going
sprint.
Yeah. Oh, you can
Yeah.
fly in a tornado now. Like, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that
it's
is
just
good. Those are
it's
some
it's harder.
really good
Yeah.
thoughts. Yeah. And I think you paying attention to that. I don't know if you ever heard this in the Army at all, but like accidents happen in like threes or fours or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And it's like, so after you get, like 2 and 3, it's good that you took a step back and were like, yeah, I'll just pass today. I can always fly another
Hmm.
day.
And on this topic too, so I have my own aircraft, right? I have a 1941 Piper Cub, and for those of you who don't know what a Piper Cub is, here on our YouTube channels we have the greatest possible training aids. So this is a Piper Cub. It's a high wings tandem 2-seater.
Bring it over a
Small
little more.
this way. Sorry.
Yeah, there
Okay.
you
Yeah.
go. There
So
you go.
it's just it's a high wing fabric airplane. Really simple. Don't mind the yellow green. I'll get into a little bit of history of the Piper Cub later. That's why it's painted this way. But it's got like a 65 horsepower engine from the factory. It's a day VFR aircraft only. Good weather only airplane. And I put a ton of time in this airframe. And speaking on the in threes, if you have an accident, not an incident, but an accident, insurance is well, first off, your insurance will get hit on your car insurance. Your car insurance will go up. Just an FYI. Also, too, you're more than likely to get into numerous accidents if you've already had an accident, and that includes inadvertent bird strikes. So if you're flying along, being an airline pilot, and you smack a bird over whatever airport, you are like 5 times more likely to get into another accident in an airplane. And I mean like an accident, which is, for aviation, it's anything over $25,000 in damage. So if you hit a bird strike, you're more than likely to, add a ton more chaos into your aviation world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's more interesting when you're like, all right, back to our sprinting thing. Like, you've just barely got your license. Let's go fly in bad weather. It's like, maybe not.
Yeah. And I think it just gives, to kind of what you're talking to, it just gives an inexperienced pilot. So, say you do even just pass your instrument training, they kind of have this veil that they're maybe more experienced than they really think they are, like this
Yeah.
false
Yeah.
sense of security.
It's
And,
like a safety
maybe
bias.
that, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, they think they're so safe when in reality they aren't safe. That's just an aviation thing altogether, is a safety bias. You think you're safe because you have the rating, and that comes down to like being rated versus being proficient in the airplane. Just because you have your
Hmm.
pilot's license doesn't mean you're a proficient pilot. Another example is guys that start off on digital gauges. Like a Garmin G1000 system, or Garmin 1000, just known as the G1000. If you try to take that pilot who's learning instrument flying in it and you put them into a steam gauge airplane or just a manual gauge,
Hmm.
they can't do instrument. It's not the same.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting on that front.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even stuff like that, or even just small changes in the aircraft, can really like throw a pilot,
Mm-hmm.
especially like an inexperienced pilot, and that's not even putting into account weather.
Oh, dude, get there itis. They talk about that a lot. Like, your
Hmm.
hurry to get there, that will
Yeah.
bite you in the butt hardcore. Uh, Perfect example is I took my plane from Kansas to Pennsylvania and back over a week. So 2.5 days out there, stayed 4 days locally, then flew the 2.5 days back. And on the third day, so the 2.5 portion, the third day, I couldn't land my airplane like at all. I was slamming and going and slamming and going, and I just hit exhaustion. And because I've been flying for like 50 hours, and like 25 out each way basically. And I just had hit mental exhaustion, and I was bouncing everywhere, and it was bad. It wasn't like let me just do. It was like
Hmm.
a slam, and like, all right, pull power back, wrestle this airplane back down, go around again. And I got down to the last fuel stop, and I had I don't know, a couple hours of daylight left, and I was like, screw it. I just fell asleep in the airport FBO, at like 5 p.m. and slept till like 4 a.m. on their couch. I was that exhausted, you know,
Yeah.
and it was all because I just wanted to get home. I just wanted to get home and go to sleep. But you can't get there. Itis will beat you up.
Yeah.
You know.
Just get that tunnel vision where you
Yep. You
don't
think you
really
can do
think
it, but
about
you
anything
can't.
else. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even think it's necessarily as much as you're like, no, I can do this. I can do this. I think for some people, they're just not even thinking about it. It's just like, I can, I can make it. I'll just get home. Here we go. It's like you're not taking into account the risks, I guess. You're not really
Hmm.
thinking about what could go wrong. But kind of on that too, something that I found out today. I had a different instructor that I normally have, and this leaks in to instructors as well, because you have CFIs who started their private pilot, say, a year and a half ago,
Yep.
and now they're CFIs and they're teaching private pilots. And I noticed today, like I had a guy that was in the service before. I think he was actually in the Navy too, and he was a pilot in the Navy. And just going up with him, I could tell like he could teach me a lot better. He just had some like tips here, a lot more things like, oh, try this, a lot better at explaining things in the aircraft and like flying. And then I got to talking to him and found that out. And I think that makes a huge difference in training pilots is we have these like young pilots who go straight from private pilot, instrument commercial, CFI, and then they start teaching the private pilots. But the question is like, how good are some of these CFIs that are actually teaching the new
Hmm.
private pilots? You know,
Just because you know the answers to the test doesn't make you knowledgeable in the test material.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's really
especially.
all the ratings are. The ratings are just a test. You just get a set number of tasks, you complete the tasks, and then you test yourself on the task. That's all the ratings are. That doesn't make you a good pilot, you know.
Hmm.
And I think this is kind of going back to the old and bold aviator term. You know, there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are never old and bold pilots, right? And
Mm,
I think what that comes down to is you know, guys just, hey, here's the tasks, do the tasks, test the tasks. All right, I'm a pilot now. Oh,
yeah.
I'll go learn, I'll go fly myself. You know, like, well, dude, why don't you take an airplane, the cheapest one the cheapest one you can find, make sure it's safe enough, and fly that thing across the country. You will learn more flying VFR on the cheapest airplane you can find than any flight rating will teach you. Literally, just
Yeah.
like, man, the stories I could tell you going across the country, running out of fuel or getting low on fuel, not running out, but getting low on fuel in one part and having to siphon gas from an airplane and not being able to make it over mountains and, you know, really pushing this 30-minute VFR limitation on fuel when you get there. Because the Cub doesn't have like an actual fuel gauge, right? And I can run the
Mm,
calculation because I burn 5 gallons an hour. I've got a 12-gallon tank, so I have 2.5 hours flight time, right? Pretty simple. But I got to have
mm-hmm.
a 30-minute reserve for when I'm in VFR conditions. Well, there's no way for me to, other than to keep track of the time, there's no way for me to tell in my airplane exactly how much fuel I have, except for this little dipstick that goes up and down. The fuel gauge of Piper Cub is a floating dipstick. So you
Mm,
always assume the dipstick is lower than what it actually is. But what I don't know is where on my dipstick is a 30-minute reserve, you know? So as
yeah.
soon as I turn that airplane on, I write down the time, and 2.5 hours from that, I better be down. Otherwise, I'm pushing the limit. And there's been a few times I'm like, I don't know, did I take off 10 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago? Like I forgot to write down the gap between when I turned the engine on and walked back in the airplane and buckled up and taxied all the way out. And then I record my time on the takeoff, but I'm still burning fuel the second that engine turns on. And I've forgotten, you know, it's taken me 10 or 15 minutes waiting on the ground for an airplane to pass here or to climb up to altitude. And you're like, oh, that's why we do fuel calculations. Okay, now I understand that, you know.
So when you first bought that, did you have any hesitancy towards buying it as just like being
Nope,
a, brand
nope.
new guy?
I didn't even have my private pilot's license when I bought this airplane. I had 20 hours and I had soloed 2 or 3 times. I had zero tailwheel time because the Piper Cub is a tailwheel airplane. So, you know, it sits on its tail versus a Cessna is a nose wheel airplane. It sits up higher like this. I know you're like, oh, I know what a tailwheel is, but you'll be surprised when you tell someone, oh, I have my tailwheel endorsement. And they're like, what? What's a tailwheel airplane? You're like,
Mm.
oh, okay. Just like, and we'll get into the difference about just because you're a commercial pilot doesn't mean you're flying commercial. And I know you've had
Yeah,
people ask the
yeah,
question.
no,
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
yeah, I had no hesitancy. The only hesitancy I had was which airplane was I going to buy. That was like, I could buy a Kid Fox. The wings can fold up, and it's experimental. I can do my own inspections on it, and that gets down a whole other rabbit hole of Part 41s and experimental stuff. But um, my hesitancy was, could I afford to operate the airplane after I bought it? That was my main concern.
Hmm.
Could I afford the gas? Could I afford the maintenance per hour? Could I afford the insurance? Not required to have insurance on an airplane. It helps, but could I afford to run it per hour, and could I afford to pay for the gas? And then what did hangar cost? Because people forget hangars for fabric airplanes, because the Cub is a fabric airplane. You have to have it stored inside. You will get your
Hmm.
aircraft wrecked outside. I mean, guys do in Alaska all the time, but you need to. The hesitancy was, which airplane did I want? So, and I got the Cub because it was cheap to operate, ton of knowledge out there. I knew everything about what engine, when the engine's going to need an overhaul, how to fix this thing or that thing. There are books and manuals and museums on the Piper Cub. So I knew there's just an absolute wealth of knowledge, and I wouldn't be left in the dark. That's really
Yeah,
what I needed.
yeah, I see what you're saying. So what are the numbers looking like that for? Like how much is it costing you to operate that, and what do you think you saved as far as, I guess first, how many flight hours have you gotten from it?
I've gotten
And
about 210 hours in the Cub, but I'd say
dang,
about 200 hours. 200 hours in the Cub.
and then all costs considered, what would you say your hourly, cost to run the plane is?
Um, I would say about $45 an hour with maintenance and fuel included. That's as what we would know as a wet rate, and I say that's
Mm,
basically like, um, well, it depends on what the gas prices are. Right now they're going down a bit, but for me to fill up the nose tank, and my airplane can run auto gas, non-ethanol auto gas. It doesn't have to use 100 low lead.
oh man,
Yeah, yeah. See that?
that's
Boom, cost me
crucial
right
there.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah. So for those that don't understand, like 100 low lead airplane gas is about average across the country $6.50 a gallon right now, which is freaking expensive. So for me, it's about 370 to fill up. So it cost me about $45 to fill the tank in gas, but that'll get me 2 hours of flying, right? So you cut that in half. You know, it's $23, right? $23 an
yeah.
hour in fuel,
Wow,
and then after that you factor in about $15 an hour in maintenance. You know,
man. A lot of people are spending more in their cars to fill up than you are in your your
Dude,
airplane.
yeah, exactly. So if you think about it, let's just round up to $25. You're at $40 for an hour of flying. So $80 gets me 2 hours of flying wet. With fuel and maintenance included. Now I don't set aside the $15 every time I fly. I just pay it at the end of the year for the annual and anything. Sorry, don't mind my dog. Um,
Oh,
anything, um, anything that I need for maintenance, I just buy it as I go throughout the year. I looked up. I'm going to need at 100 hours. I should be inspecting, or 200 hours. I should be inspecting the brake cylinders. There's little like drum diaphragms inside the brake cylinders underneath the front seat. So every 200 hours, those have to be replaced. It cost me $40. Okay, buy that when it comes around. The 500-hour magneto check, I haven't had to do that yet because I'm getting an overhaul right now anyway. Um, so in another 500 hours, we'll check that. That'll probably be $200. You know, so we're in there depending on what's wrong. Spark plugs, not that expensive. Wires are that expensive. It's when you get to the bigger things like a windshield that gets expensive. $1,000 for a porthole. Like this light
really?
right here. Yeah, getting a size of a light like that, that'd be $800 in an airplane, easy. You
Damn.
know. So like I
Yeah.
have a crack in my back left window that's going to have to get replaced here soon, and that'll probably be $1,000 for a stupid fucking
Yeah.
window. Yep. And all it
Yeah,
is
I believe that.
plexiglass.
Yeah,
You know.
I used to work in supply chain for a air medical company, so did a lot
Mm.
of like helicopter purchasing of, parts and healthcare parts as well. but even just a roll of duct tape that was like,
Which is not, it's not
approved.
normal duct tape.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
might as well be duct tape probably. Was like $2,000 or $3,000. It's like,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
wow, damn.
Is that are you talking about the silver duct tape?
Yeah, there are a
We're
few
talking,
different kinds, but there was one that was silver. This was
yeah.
on Helos though.
Or are you talking like the 100-mile-an-hour tape?
I don't know. What does that look like?
It's just normal military 100-mile-an-hour tape, like the green duct tape you get in the Army or the Marine
Oh
Corps.
no,
Yeah,
no.
that is 100-mile-an-hour tape, and it's that's actually aviation rated, and that is also very expensive
Yeah,
for no reason.
yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say for no reason.
Essentially,
Aviation grade.
it's aviation grade.
Yeah.
It's had
Meanwhile,
somebody grade it when probably all they did was like, "Oh, yep, looks like it holds up."
all right, sign that off. Have the FAA approve
Yeah,
it. Good to go.
I'll sign that off. And you get the guy in the back, Jerry in the back, who's got to sign it to say it's worth $3,000.
Yeah, and you got to pay him 1,500 of it to come out every year and
Yeah.
inspect it. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
then,
the cup can be cheap or it can be really expensive. As long as you're, here's what I learned about airplane ownership that you're not going to learn in flight school, and this is why it's really important. I think that when most people enter the field, they should look at purchasing a older, like 1940s, 1950s, general aviation airplane. Besides, we've talked about the cost per hour is significantly lower, right? So let's say
mhm.
it costs me, just for sake of argument here, $50 an hour, and that includes fuel, right? It's now going to cost me $50 more per hour for an instructor, right? So we're at $100 per hour. That is reasonably cheap by today's standards
Oh
for
yeah, big
flight
time.
time, because K-State charges $375 an hour, which is expensive.
Whoa.
Yep.
I want to say it's 250 here.
Yeah. Well, we have
So,
brand new airplanes with digital everything and brand new seats that I can feel my butthole massaged every day. And like,
oh, does it got a
excuse my,
warmer too?
no, it doesn't. I'm just being sarcastic. Like, it's,
Yeah,
we have
come
the
on,
latest,
man.
greatest Cessnas.
You can't be saying butthole on the channel.
I'm sorry.
Any
I
other
said
word but butthole.
any other word.
But
You know what I'm saying. No, okay. So you buy the general aviation airplane, right? And what you're going to learn is how to maintain an airplane. You're going to learn that, hey, airplanes need to have an oil change every 25 hours or every 50 hours if you do an oil change. You're going to learn how to replace your tires. You're going to learn that there's an inner tube. Most airplanes have an inner tube on their tire. Unlike cars, there's usually no inner tube these days. There's
yeah.
always more than likely an inner tube in aviation, general aviation. You're going to learn how to maintain a fabric aircraft versus a metal aircraft. You're going to learn how to look outside the cockpit and fly by feeling the airplane versus looking at the gauges all the time. When Piper Cubs are brought into it, there's a check ride task where all the gauges were covered up, and you would fly based on hearing the air move over the airplane and feeling it, and you would be diverted. You would know the airspeed. You would just feel how the airplane is, and you would learn to sync yourself with what you can feel. Every World War II pilot started off that way. Is they learn how to fly in a Piper Cub at some flight school in the middle of nowhere, because in World War II, the Army instituted what's called the CPTP, the Civilian Pilot Training Program, where they trained over 450,000 fighter pilots and bomber pilots. Just every pilot in World War II started off. You had to have 2 years of college or a 4-year degree, one of the other. So if you had 2 years of college, no degree, just 2 years of college time, you could join the Army Air Corps and get flight training for the CPTP at your school. You get your private pilot's license through school. And then at the end of those 2 years, boom, right into flight training. You would go with the military, whether Navy, Marine Corps, or Army. And then you'd go through their flight school.
Wow.
Yeah, you'd
How
go through
many
their flight
people you
school.
said?
450,000 pilots over World War II started in the CPTP flying Piper Cubs. Yep. Over 20,000 Piper Cubs were made. And they only have 4 instruments in the airplane. That's it. There's no vertical speed in them, like a vertical speed indicator. There's no horizon indicator. You have airspeed, RPMs. You've got oil temp, oil pressure, and then you've got there's one more. Airspeed. Oh, altitude. There we go. altitude, airspeed, RPM, oil temp, oil pressure. You technically have a magnetic compass, and then you get a fuel gauge, but it's not. They don't really count. You have to have them in the airplane. They have to be in good working order, but you're not gonna. You'll know when you're out of gas.
450,000. That's crazy.
Yeah, and think
That's
about it. Back then, it
insane.
was $1 an hour for flight training.
Yeah,
The Piper Cub originally
that's
cost
just that
$1,200 new from the factory,
$1,200.
and that
Wow.
included free flight lessons.
Dang. That's
Yep,
crazy. That'll tell you what fiat currency does.
it's true. Yeah. So okay, so to get into VR&E, let's go over that because we've kind of just been talking
Yeah,
about general aviation.
before we move on to that, just want to touch a little. So how do you do your maintenance? So because you're not a certified like
Yeah,
A&P
I'm at an
mechanic, I'm assuming
airframe and
you're
power plant.
right.
Yep.
So how does
Okay.
that work?
So as a private pilot or an owner operator, you can follow Part 41, which allows you to do like minor preventative maintenance and like
Hmm.
minor not alterations, but allows you to do like you have a fabric airplane and you want to patch a hole, so you get nicked by a rock in your fabric, you're allowed to patch it. You're not allowed to recover the airplane, and you're allowed to rotate tires, do an oil change, clean your windows, simple things like that. No more than what you would do with a car. You're not allowed to replace a wing or anything that has to do with any major alterations to the airframe or power plant. And with that, you just basically you go in your logbook. Every airplane has its own airframe logbook and its own engine logbook, right? And let's
Hmm.
say I'm gonna do an oil change. It's really simple. I'm gonna go make sure I have the correct oil and the correct amount of quarts or gallons or however much I'm putting in, and I'm gonna drain it out, fill it up with oil, and then in the logbook entry, I'm going to be like, hey, on this date with this much hop time on the aircraft, I replaced the oil in this airplane, serial number, and whatever, and I've put this much oil in of this consistency in accordance with manual procedure, whatever, and then I date and sign it, and then I'm allowed to return the aircraft back to operation.
Yeah.
So. Um,
And then what happens if it's something that, you can't do per, Part 43 Appendix A?
So you can do one of two things. You can just take it to a shop, and an A&P and an IA will work on it for you, or you can do what's called an owner-assisted
Hmm.
task or repair or whatever, where you do the work under the watchful eye and guide of an experienced mechanic. Typically, it's an
Hmm.
IA, and then they'll sign the logbook saying that that work was done in accordance with whatever manual
Yeah.
procedure.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. I imagine
Yeah,
that route's a lot cheaper too.
it very much is because you're not paying them for the labor.
Hmm. Yeah.
They'll order the parts, they'll inspect it, but you're doing all the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Labor's always the biggest cost in most things.
Depends on what part you're buying.
That's true.
A $5,000 window is a lot cheaper than 4 hours of manual labor. Or sorry, a lot more expensive
Yeah.
than 4 hours manual labor.
Yeah.
So, which under like Part 41, you can't replace the cockpit windshield, the front windshield. You're not allowed to replace it. Any of the side windows, you can replace that and put that back in operation yourself.
Yeah. That's sweet. That's a good deal you got there with that Piper Cub.
Yeah, dude. You take girls on Tinder dates, works really well because it's not that expensive. You can fly all over the country
That's the
anywhere.
biggest. That's the biggest flex Tinder date I've
It
ever heard
is.
of.
Yeah. Hey, have
I
you ever
would
heard?
take my panties off for you.
We don't need to go that far. I'm sure you're a really nice guy. We can have a platonic friendship. How's that? I'm not denying you, but
But
I'm just saying let's go one step at a time here.
so man, what you just told him? Hey, why don't you just come for a flight on
Yep.
my plane?
Yeah, literally.
First date?
Hey, yeah, I've taken two girls up on a first date with my airplane.
It's just like
Both of them, one of them, yeah. So one of them I kept for a while. The other one was like, this is the worst story in the world. Where I was like, I've never thought about how to get rid of someone in an airplane, but I thought about it for a second. So we're up there flying. I have like a predetermined safe route that I take them. A little adrenaline pumping, no big deal. And she's like, "Oh, this is really cool, but it'd be a lot cooler if you had a boat." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And she's like, "Yeah, a boat." I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I love boats, and it'd be a lot cool if you had one. And I was like, a boat?
Oh man.
And I was like, you know that the
Get
Piper
out.
Cub, you know, I can get floats for this, right? She's like, what are floats? And I was like, well, we can turn the Piper Cub into a seaplane, make floats for it. We can fly into ponds and lakes and land. We can fish off this and whatever. She's like, yeah, but I can't sunbathe on it. And I was like, all right. I literally
Sounds
turned
like
the plane around.
yeah.
I turned it right around and went right back to the airport. You didn't say a word to her the whole 20-minute flight back.
Sounds
Landed,
like you
I was
should have thrown her out.
I
I wouldn't
of
have
that,
thrown her
dude.
out. I would have right after you land when you're slowing down, that's when you throw her out. You know she'll be okay, but she'll
Yeah.
still eat some shit.
And then you just hit full power and you leave.
Yeah. Have
No,
fun with your boat.
dude, yeah. Well, you know what BOAT stands for, right?
No, what does it stand for?
Bring only A's and T's. So if she's like, hey, I like boats, you know what type of girl she is, and then you don't bring her along. Because only the finest of women get to fly. Just remember, look at it this way, right?
Everything Do you
in
have
aviation,
a boat?
Yeah, everything in
Man.
aviation is like a draining asset, right? Like it costs money to do. It doesn't really generate you much. So it's either gas, cash, or ass. No one flies for free. That's how it works.
Exactly. Yeah. Ass, grass, or cash. Nobody flies for free.
Yep. So, you know, she's got to be kind
man.
of worth your time. I learned pretty quickly that, you know, on Tinder dates, we wait second or third date, then she gets
that
to
one
fly.
never gets. One of my master divers in the Navy used to say that. That saying never gets old. Ass, grass, or cash. Nobody flies for free.
It's true. It's 100% true. Okay, so on the VR&E side, right?
Yeah, let's
get
to the VR&E.
Let's get back to adult stuff. All right, so you get your private pilot's license, and now you're going to go to VR&E, right? So what you need to do is you need to go to a VR&E counselor. You need to apply, and in order to do that, you have to have at least a 10% disability rating, right? Super important. Mm-hmm. The higher disability rating you have, the better chances. And the intent of VR&E, and this is super important, is that you understand that VR&E is there to reduce the impact your disabilities have on your ability to have a career. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can't just be like, I have tinnitus. Okay, dude, how are you unable to hold a job?
Yeah,
right.
You got to connect that to your current field of work or how it's affecting you not getting a job.
So, like, example is I have some back disabilities. Like, my lower back is kind of jacked up, right? I could go into it more, but we're not on a medical podcast. So, you know, my lower back is jacked up. I can't stand on my feet for 12 hours a day because it hurts, right? But after like 2 hours, I'm like, no, I got to sit down, dude. So when I first got out of the Army, before I got into aviation, I thought about a career in law enforcement. And I was like, no, can't do that, dude. My back is jacked up. Like, I just can't do it. And so I kind of like bounced around and got in the aviation side. Well, when I went to go to VR&E, they're like, well, how does aviation reduce the impact your disabilities have on you? And I was like, oh, easy. I don't have to stand on my feet for 12 hours a day. Mm-hmm. I can't put 100 pounds of gear on my back anymore. I can't wear body armor all day long. You know, like, you know, I don't want to go back into an environment that reminds me of Afghanistan. Aviation is, to me, what you would consider post-traumatic rehabilitation, right? It provides enough of a focus and purpose for me that the PTSD effects are minimal because I have purpose, direction, motivation. I have something to accomplish that has wide ranges of career progression. I can be an airshow pilot, a crop duster, survey pilot. There's everything under the sun is possible, you know? And so it allowed me to specialize in an area and stay focused on what and how I wanted. And that was a huge kicker into, you know, getting VR&E. Now, I know people are going to be like, well, I didn't deploy or I don't have PTSD. Totally fine. When you separate from the military, you are easily eligible to get PTSD rating via depression, because depression and PTSD are under the same umbrella of a medical disability through the VA. Now, don't go taking a bunch of antidepressants. That's not the purpose of that. If you take any antidepressants, you're not going to get an FAA medical. If you can't get a medical, you can't fly, which is a huge deal. So you can be depressed when you leave the military. You can be like, dude, this sucks. Like, I don't like the civilian world. It's realistically, if
Yeah.
you haven't been in combat,
It's
it's
a
your first true test of loss in your life. You're
yeah.
leaving a huge support network, friends and family, basically. You've been around for 3+ years doing really intense stuff. And the military is just one big trauma bond, is really all it is. And so now
That's a
you're
good way to
out.
put it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and now you get out and you have no one to relate to. You have no trauma bonding available, right? Because none of the civilians have gone through what you've gone through, right? So now
Yeah.
you're just by yourself. There's
Yeah.
nothing for
You're
you to do, and
pretty much
that's what.
switching, and you're switching careers too. So it's
Yeah.
not only
Yep.
like, your friends, kind of your family in a way, probably the place that you live too. I mean, a lot of vets move usually from the place that they live, afterwards. So
Yeah.
changing all those things and then including your career. So there's no wonder there's going to be a little bit of space there, maybe some depression from
Yep.
basically starting your life over.
Yeah. And that goes to the point too, like why most criminals end up back in jail is because they can't adapt to the civilian world. Even though they're
Hmm.
civilians, they can't really adapt outside of jail because they're not resonating with people who have trauma bonding experiences. Whether it could be a guy who just got one too many speeding tickets, because you can go to jail for having speeding tickets. And God forbid the extreme side of things, but you're not going to be able to adapt very well after you've been through that experience compared to other
Yeah.
civilians. So you can get that VA rating, and as long as you're not on any medications, you can go see a therapist, no problem. In fact, I highly encourage you to go see one anyway, especially as you're getting out. Go through the VA, just get one. Just talk about how you could be happy. Like, just go see a therapist because you're happy. There's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with that, because if you're just having a bad fucking day and you're just like, I don't know what to do about this, therapist is going to help you cognitively work around that 90-degree turn in your emotions to figure out how to unstuck yourself from that situation. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's part of maintaining your health side and being healthy when you get out. So you should go anyway. But on that, it's actually better for you because then the FAA won't make a big deal out of it. I'm rated pretty high for PTSD, and I have never taken any medications. I've never been depressed. I've never had any medical issues. I just go see a therapist bi-weekly or as needed. And
Hmm.
that's been fine with me. And I have a first-class medical, so.
And you just stick on a schedule of, I see the
Yep.
therapist on X day of the week or X day of the month, and you keep that
Yep.
consistently.
Yep. Been doing it for 5 years now. Just literally up. It could be good days, bad days. Like, oh yeah, I did shit this week. I've sat around and read books, and life sucks, and I'm grinding through college, and I can't wait to go be a professional pilot, and that's cool. Or like, today was a good day. I got up, I went out with a few buddies, we had a beer. I didn't have to fly tomorrow, so I could drink a little bit more. Or I went to the gym and hit a new PR. Or I played Xbox for 6 hours today because I'm lazy. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go to a therapist just because you're freaking sad.
Hmm.
Like, I've become friends with my therapist where I'm excited to tell her things like, I had a good day today. Check this out. And
Yeah.
she turned out to be a really great person, and I keep it very professional. Like, I don't talk to her outside of a professional setting, but there are times I'm excited to go talk to my therapist because she's a good therapist and she knows what she's doing. So go see a therapist, and that'll
Well,
help
that's
with the
good, man.
PTSD side.
That's good. Glad you have that. A lot of people, need that and don't have
They
that,
don't. Most people don't know they need
especially,
it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that's definitely true. Even
So
even if you're, I think there's been a lot of awareness spread for like combat veterans coming out,
mhm.
and awareness for combat veterans getting help. But I think even on the level of if you're a veteran and not a combat veteran, that I think there's a stigma that those veterans don't need help, or you shouldn't need help because you're never in combat. But like we were just talking about, you could think that you're fine, but with this entire life change that you're just going through right now,
yeah,
that might throw you off a little bit.
it's not. It might. It will. It's going to. And it's going to take. I think right now, like, the average time for a veteran well, okay. First off, there's if you join the Army or the military, whatever, Marine Corps or whatever Canadian organization you joined, if you joined at 17, well, you're in high school, you turn 18, you graduate high school, and then you left for basic training, you are not reintegrating back into society. You are integrating back in. Well, excuse me, you're integrating in, not reintegrating back in. And the reason is when you left home at 17, you're a kid. 17, 18 years old, you're a kid. You've lived under mom and dad's roof your entire time, or you've had some support network that's paying the bills. You're going to school. You know, there's no like, hey, it's time to be an adult now. And when you graduate high school, it's either you go to college, get a job, or join the military. Those are the three options. And if you join the military, you're leaving one portion of society for another society. So when you get done, you go to the society that is now, it's not the same when you left 3 years ago, you know? So you can't reintegrate in society you were never really a part of. So you have to integrate into it. And that integration is it has a steep learning curve. And because, you know, in the military, we're taught to have active voice, to actively approach the problem and solve it. And there's no hard feelings about it. It's like, hey, you know, Mike showed up 20 minutes late for work today. Don't do it again. Pretty simple, you know, or why did you show up 20 minutes late today? Well, I got stuck in traffic. Okay, maybe leave 20 minutes earlier next time, or be more proactive in checking traffic or whatever. In the civilian world, you can't really actively tell someone like that. You gotta kind of beat around the bush a little. And
yeah, you're like, oh, you can't say that to Sandy because she has a cat that has Down syndrome. Oh God, you know.
Is, you know, I'm sorry if your cat has Down syndrome. I really am. But like, I can't be like, well, that sucks. I don't give a shit about your cat. Like, you know, I've got 4 kids and 2 dogs and 5 chickens, and the dog ate the chicken this week, and I still showed up to work on time, you know? Or as you know, is by the time you're 21 years old, you've probably gone through a divorce. You're a raging alcoholic in the military. You're super depressed, and you hate everyone. You cannot act like that when you go to work in the civilian world. So you need to learn to shed the alcohol when you get out. You need to go to the freaking gym, go see a therapist, and find a career where you're going to be like, oh, this is cool, you know?
Yeah.
Just don't go be a bench breather, you know, as I call them, where you go get like a suit, a tie, and you go sit at a desk all day. And yeah.
Yeah. On that point really quick, I think that was definitely something that I have struggled with when you get out. You know, you go from doing some cool shit you're going to do in your life, really, for the most part. And, you know, you also have a lot of testosterone when you're younger. You're with your boys, some people that you like create this bond with. And then you leave that to the civilian world. And then, especially if you find yourself in a corporate job where you're just sitting behind a desk, you're like,
yep,
I'm a fucking loser.
Meanwhile, 6 months ago, you were firing machine guns and rocket launchers, or in your case, you were diving under boats and stuff, you know, because are you just an underwater diver or an underwater welder?
So the Navy has contracted most of their welding out now, so we don't really do a lot of welding, but so we did like salvage, underwater ships husbandry, like mine clearance, stuff like that.
You're never going to do mine clearance in a blue collar job. Like you're doing some PowerPoint spreadsheet. And meanwhile, like a year ago, you're like, oh, dude, I found this Syrian mine in the Gulf and I diffused it. And it's super sketchy being in the water, freaking in the middle of the Middle Eastern Gulf or whatever, diffusing an anti-ship mine. Well, you got like 500 sharks swimming around, you know, like
That's exactly how it was.
Yes. Dude,
keep building it up.
The ocean is 90% sharks and 10% water. You know, so you can't resonate with being a keyboard breather, you know, and you've got to learn how to take your time and integrate into that. But okay, so you get all your medical stuff done, you go to VR&E, you're going to have an appointment with a counselor. A counselor is going to go over everything. They're going to go over what you want to achieve, what your disability rating is, how you plan to achieve it. More than likely, it's going to be a college or trade school, one of the two. So if you want to go this doesn't apply to aviation. You say you just want to go be a welder, right? Yeah. You can go to VR&E and do that for welding, or say you want to be a truck driver, but you want to do you want to tow or haul the big stuff, you know, like you want to do nuclear, biological, chemical work for the Department of Energy, that level, then you'd go to a trade school and VR&E will cover that as well. So it's not just aviation. You still need a disability rating. You still meet with a counselor, and then they'll find a path for you to get there. Aviation is a little bit more different a little bit more different, a little bit different than all the other stuff, because you have to still select a Part 141 school, not a Part 61. Part 61, remember, local flight school. Part 141 is college. You have to go to that flight school. You have to have already had your private pilot's license, and you need to maintain at least a second class medical. So as long as you can do those two things, you're pretty much through the door. And after that, you're going to explain that, hey, I want to go be in aviation because it provides post-traumatic rehabilitation for me. That's key term there. Post-traumatic rehabilitation allows you to integrate into society, right? And one of the other things that I used in this process was I said, I don't have to talk to people on the airplane. I don't have a problem going into crowds or going to restaurants. I don't do the whole, let me sit this way facing everywhere. I'm confident no matter where I go, I can either shoot my way out of it, fight my way out of it, or, just get out of it, right? Run like a girl. I can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Either I'm flipping tables or flipping doors. Like, something's going to happen, right? So I'm confident no matter where I go, but sometimes I just don't want to talk to civilians. Like, I'm just like, you're dumb. I'm dumb. We don't want to be dumb together, so let's just not talk.
Let's not create a dumb combination.
Exactly, because I will help spur that on. So sometimes I just don't want to talk to people. And being in an airplane, I don't have to talk to people that much, especially in the Cub, believe it or not, because the Cub does not have an electrical system. And I am exempt from what's called regulation of 91-225, subparagraph D, which says that if you have an aircraft made without a certified electrical system, in the book, or the FARs, it does not say specifically 1953, but if you look further into it, it's any aircraft made prior to 1953 is exempt from transponder and electrical system requirements. So the Cub never came with a radio. So any uncontrolled airspace, it's just look out the cockpit and verify things are clear, and I don't have to talk to anyone. I can literally I have a handheld radio that I carry with me for safety reasons, but if I don't want to talk to you for a whole 2 hours, I don't have to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Just disappear,
So a question that I've gotten before from somebody is, so you have your first class medical, right?
Yep.
But then at the same time with VR&E, you're kind of trying to prove in some sense that you're disabled, let's say, for lack of a better word. But the first class medical, there are some, medical stringencies there that you have to have a certain amount of health. So, how would you bridge the gap between a VR&E counselor? This is your first meeting. If I'm saying this to you, and this is going to be my reason to, not approve you, what would a rebuttal to that be?
So easiest way to fix this is go get your medical first. Because remember, you're going to have your private pilot's license already. Because in order to do that, you have to have a medical, right? When you go to get your medical exam, you're going to disclose to the FAA that you have VA disability ratings, and you're going to describe what they are. And you're going to go over them with your AME, your Airman Medical Examiner. It's a guy that specializes in FAA medicals, right? Yeah. And
touching balls and stuff.
It's like a MEPS doctor, but not as weird. So you don't have to duck walk naked. They don't look at your other hole that you told me not to say. And so they're not going to look at those things, but they're going to go over your body. Do you have any mental conditions? Do you have any physical limitations? Like, I'm missing an arm. Obviously I'm not, but let's say I am. That would be, career prohibitive. Have you been taking any medications? Medications and physical, your parts missing. Can you sit in the airplane? Are you cognitive enough? ADHD is going to get you kicked out pretty much immediately. You can be in the military and have ADHD, by the way, and ADD, but you can't have that in aviation. And I know this for a fact, not because I have it, but because I dated an Army nurse for a while. She's a captain, and she had ADD. I can't remember if she had ADD or ADHD, but she was on she was on a medication for ADD or ADHD that allow her to focus. And I can't think of what it's called. Someone in this podcast can be like, that's it. I just can't think of it. But she was on that, and she was like, hey, we were dating, and she was like, hey, I want to get my pilot's license. I was like, sorry, can't do it. You're not medically safe. Now, the FAA is trying to work around it for ADD, ADHD, but if you have it, it would pretty much count not going to happen. PTSD you can have been injured. I have shrapnel in my right leg. I got blown up by a hand grenade. I have limited mobility in my ankles, but as long as I can reach the rudder pedals and it doesn't, reduce my ability to operate the aircraft safely, you're going to be fine. So when you go to VR&E and they're like, well, I know you have disabilities, they're going to ask you, do you have a medical? You'll be like, yes, here's my first class medical. Boom. Good to go. That's it. Because FAA medical and VA medical is totally different criteria. Mm-hmm. So just make sure no medications, no mental issues, and you're physically good. Like, don't be overweight. Don't be fat. Literally, don't be. Yeah. Don't be a mouth breather.
That's just a life advice. Just don't be fat.
And I know someone's going to be on here and be like, well, if that's their choice, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you right now, the same level, generalized level of fitness that you had while you were in the military, like you have to be generally healthy. You don't have to be, David Goggins and carry the boats every day, but you just have to be generally healthy, right? I would say your body fat percentage is really what it's going to matter. Probably don't be more than 20% body fat, and even that's pushing it. Basically, don't be over height and weight standards for the military, and you're fine, And you don't want to be heavier in the airplane anyway, because weight equals fuel and fuel equals dollars. So you're physically going to pay for your ass being fat in an airplane because you're going to burn more fuel per hour. And at $7 a gallon, and you're burning 9 gallons an hour, you're going to pay for being fat.
Yeah.
It's going to suck.
Kind of makes you think that any really fat CFIs should either get paid less or fat students should have to pay more.
We'll do a second on podcast, and I will come up with the math to figure out how much you should pay per hour based on your body weight.
Based on your body weight.
Yeah, that would be a good one. That's funny you bring this up, because now I'm going to go figure this out, and if I have a fat CFI at school, I'm be like, well, I know you're getting paid $20 an hour from the school, but I determined
I'm
paying you too much.
Did some math here, and not looking good for you, buddy. And then you can be like, so I can either present this to the school, or you can pay me half of what you would lose if I presented it to them.
I think it's called blackmailing.
Maybe, but
or is it called weight mailing at that point? So
you're just helping him in the end,
on a professional level, that is true. That's how you teach, coach, and inspire people to stay in shape.
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't matter if you're not the one paying for the fuel, but if you're the one paying for the fuel, that's, extra weight in the airplane when you land. It's extra, every time that airplane hits the ground, that's more wear and tear on the aircraft because your ass is fat,
Yeah.
And I understand there are dudes that are just big and heavy and they're ripped, and they're 6 foot tall like you.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and on the smaller airplanes, if you are heavier, like a Cessna, you're going to go overweight on that airplane, and you're probably not going to be able to fly. Yeah. So it behooves you to lose the weight. So anyway, you get through that medical process with the VR&E counselor, and then they're going to want you to do some homework on your career field. You're going to go. They're going to give you a bunch of websites, and you're going to have to go to these websites, and they're going to have to show that this career field generates enough over 5 or 10 or a career's length, and that career is the field expected growth within that career is good. So typically around 4 to 6% is what you want to see for a career. So if you're doing the research on this career to show that it is a viable career for you to stay into, you should be around 4 to 6%. Because what they don't want to see is they're going to pay $100,000 for a career that doesn't have career growth. In fact, it's the inverse. And then you've got a career that you can do nothing with because it's flooded or has no relevancy. An example would be, if you wanted to be we'll just say like you wanted to be a construction worker or real estate agent. There's like 2 million real estate agents in the country. The VR&E is not going to pay for you to be a real estate agent, that type thing. Yeah. There's no career growth in it. So
Yeah.
once you get that 6%, you'll do that. And here's the most important part, especially for aviation, or really any career, but especially for aviation, is you need to put down, you're going to basically sign a contract with VR&E that says, hey, you guys are going to pay for me to get to this level in the career field, right? You want to put the highest level possible in that career field. So if you want to be a chief pilot at Delta Airlines or Southwest, you want to be the highest level pilot there, right? 30,000 flight hours. You're the guy that does all the check airmen. You're the ones that certify their airplanes. You're the one that works with their lawyers and their insurance companies and teaches them how to teach you how to fly that airplane, the brand new airplane they bought, right? You need to put that in that written contract with them that says, I want to be a chief airplane pilot at a major airlines, okay? Because yes, you're going to finish your degree program, but you're not hireable at that level that you put down on that piece of paper. So VR&E has to find a way to get you from the lowest level to the highest level. So they're going to find that entire career path all the way through, and they're not going to close the file on you until you've gotten to that level. So don't be like, hey, I want to be a commercial airline pilot. Well, you have your commercial pilot's license, you're a commercial pilot. Good luck. And you're only at 250 hours, no multi-engine time, no night time, no instrument time. You're just, hey, you've met, like we talked about, check the boxes, do the task, pass the test, but you're really not at the level in the career that you said you wanted to get to, right? So that's like the most important thing you need to understand about VR&E is you have to get mentioned all the way to the top. Otherwise, you're going to get the very bottom. Whatever you put in there is what you're going to get. And I'm going through that with my career counselor right now because I have a job opportunity and I want to leave school to go do that job, right? You and I talked a little bit about before the podcast, but I want to leave to go do a job. I don't want to stay in school full time. I want to go part-time online and go into the job field and do both simultaneously. In that process, I put down that I wanted to go fly for Southwest. Literally, I named Southwest, and I said commercial airline pilot, right? Well, the problem with Southwest is they require 2,000 hours total time and a minimum of 1,000 hours turboprop to be really competitive to work there. Well, my flight school is not going to give me 1,000 hours turboprop, and neither is being a CFI. You're not going to get 1,000 hours turboprop. So it is now VR&E's job to find me how to get 1,000 hours of turboprop, and they have to find a way to pay for it. So I have to find an employer that's got the turboprop, and I have to figure out how to bridge the two and teach them how to do it. So that opened up a whole different basket of opportunity for me because I'm like, I can go get a job being a crop duster. So now they'll work a program with the crop duster, hopefully. I say hopefully because we're in this process right now. I'm learning as I'm going, that they will pay me to go do this on-the-job training as a commercial pilot to get my 1,000 hours turboprop. And this is probably what we talked about earlier, where guys are like, what's the difference between you being a commercial pilot and you flying for a commercial airline? And we've talked about this a little bit before talking, people don't understand the difference. A commercial pilot is just a rating. You are commercially available for compensation or hire. A commercial airline pilot is a pilot who has a commercial license that operates in either Part 135 operations, Part 137 operations, or Part 121 operations. You can operate some aircraft under a Part 91 operation, which is like I flew my local Piper Cub under a Part 91 operation. But typically, most people associate commercial airline pilot with a 121 operation. So Delta, Southwest, American, United, those are a Part 121 operation. Part 135 is a non-scheduled airline. Southwest, Delta, American, those are scheduled airlines. And then a Part 137 operation is a crop duster. So in order for me to get to the highest level, I have to work my way up, and VR&E has to get me there. So I set the bar really high in the written contract I make with them, and then they have to get me there. That's the most important part.
And then you're going to be using them, leveraging them until you get to that position that you laid out.
And I put in there that, yes, the bachelor's degree helps, but it is not required. So I gave myself a little maneuver room to be like, I'm dropping out of full-time, going to part-time to pick up the job experience side and work my way towards the top simultaneously.
Yeah. Nice, man. That's sweet.
Dude, it took forever. Like it took me 3 years to figure out how to get there, and it took a
Really?
long time. Yeah, every day I'd search the internet. How do I get private pilot's license for free? And most of the searches bring me up to the VA's website that says what you can typically get, and they'll say
Hmm.
like a multi-engine rating or a type rating. Like you can get a 747 rating. I'm like, oh, I can go get a 747 rating. Okay, how do I do that? And then, oh, you have to have your private. Oh, you have to have your instrument. Oh, you have to have your commercial. Oh, you have to work for an airliner. Then we'll get you the rating. And I'm like, okay, well, you guys don't cover the rest of that. And everyone's like, no. I'm like, well, why would you have the link on Google for that then? You know? And
Hmm.
so I was just dead end after dead end after dead end. And I was like, I've had enough of this. There's got to be a way. And I literally, through researching it and stumbling upon K State, I found it. And that just, boom, floodgates open. Once you get
That's
into a
awesome.
school that has a Part 141 program and your private pilot's license is covered, as soon as you get your private pilot's license, go get your own airplane. Go find a Luscombe, a Piper Cub, an Aranca Chief, an Aranca Champ for, you can get them anywhere from $18,000 to $45,000, the cost of a Honda Civic, right? Go get one of those airplanes and go fly to local airports on your own, because those airplanes are, like we talked about, cheap to maintain, cheap to fly, and easy to fly. Go to these local airports and begin the networking process. You run into a mechanic here, an inspector here, a FISDO there, a local veteran who has his own airplane, who's a F-16 pilot, but he's a CFI, so he can sign you off on an extra rating and help you do extra flight training. He knows this guy over here. And once I started doing that, the doors just got wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. And now when I have to do work in my airplane, I just call a guy up that I know, and he's like, yeah, I'll be up there in a couple hours. Let me help you out. And then he
Yep.
calls me, hey, I need some help down here. And I go and help him out.
And that's
And
what people, especially veterans, don't do enough. And I know
no,
I haven't done that enough, is just networking. And that's
yeah.
like literally one of the most important things is
If you go
networking.
down
It's
to
all about
your
who you
local
know,
FBO,
all about who you know.
it really is. If you go to your local FBO, and I'm sure you know the local FBO folks where you fly at, right?
Hmm.
If you go down there and you're like, hey, are there any cool airplanes on the field? Just ask that. And if they're like, yeah, Joe Smith over in Hangar 5's got a Mustang, you're like, oh, hey, next time Joe comes in, could you let me know? I'd like to maybe talk to him and just ask questions. And sure. And they'll give you a call or a text or an email, and you show up when Joe shows up. Next thing you know, you're like, hey, my name's Travis. I'm the world's best student. And I wanted to maybe help pre-flight with you or something. That dude would be like, yeah, dude, come on. And next thing you know, you're in a Mustang somewhere zipping around wherever, because you're no one wants to
Okay.
fly by themselves. The coolest part
Yeah.
about aviation is you get to fly with other people, you know?
Hmm.
So if you can fly with someone who's just as excited for you in aviation, like you're going to have way cooler times.
Yeah. Just got to be a little willing to put yourself out there and just a little curious, I think, too.
Not bi curious, but just curious.
Well, hey man, I gotta cut us off, but I appreciate you coming on. You have a shit ton of knowledge, and just some of the stuff you've told me, you've already helped me out. So I think this will be beneficial for sure. Definitely have you back on sometime soon, and I'll link your YouTube channel in the description. It's pretty cool to see you flying there with your son as well. You got some
Yeah.
pretty neat videos on there. I checked some of those out. But yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah. We'll have to have you on mine too. And we'll have to talk about your journey and
Yeah,
stuff. And
that'd be
because you're
sweet.
doing it, you're a part 61 cowboy, as they're called. So we'll have to kind of compare notes and see how 141 versus